Today we got some really cool tech news and probably the saddest tech news you've ever seen before. And I heard you wanted to actually play your games. Well, good luck. First off, what's been going on is Gamescom, and at this event, Nvidia and AMD have press conferences, and at Nvidia's, they announced DLSS 3.5. No new GPUs or anything as far as we know, integrating a new feature called Ray Reconstruction. This is what this RR stands for. And in this, you can see a clear difference. This is still a ray traced version of Cyberpunk here on the left. And then this is DLSS 3.5 with Ray Reconstruction. As you can see, there's a lot more bounce lighting, and this purple from these lights is getting all over the scene. What it seems like it's doing is generating almost more rays, or generating rays more accurately than what typically is done. But basically, for a brief rundown, ray tracing is extremely demanding, and because it's so demanding, in order to do it in real time, is just not cast as many rays in the scene. And if you don't cast as many rays, there's a lot of issues with it. You can see there's a lot of noise going on here. In that pipeline for ray tracing, we use things called denoisers in order to clean up some of this noise. And this is because there isn't enough rays in the scene to accurately produce an image. With ray reconstruction is replace those denoisers. So instead of just using an algorithmic denoiser, Nvidia is using an AI-based denoiser, and based off of this image, supposed to give us better results. And Nvidia has obviously taken on the mentality of working smarter rather than working harder with these kinds of things, because ray tracing is very demanding, so they're using AI to make that process easier, which I can respect. It does kind of suck to see more features like DLSS as already Nvidia exclusive that looks better than other upscalers, frame generation, which currently AMD doesn't have a competitor to, and now ray reconstruction, again being a Nvidia exclusive feature. So it looks like even with the DLSS 2.0 here, that the image looks better. Am I crazy? It seems to be more bounce lighting going on here than in the native image. So I did actually go into Cyberpunk really quick to test this out, and I didn't see any difference with this. It's because the lights weren't exactly the same in the scenes, so that's why there's slight variations in the lighting. And actually, that could even be a misleading point, because say here, they could have used the DLSS 3.5. Is this image being more yellow over here? Is that because of ray reconstruction, or is that just because the lighting in the scene? So I don't know. It could be a little misleading marketing. This feature is going to be coming in fall, but it's only going to be available in a few games like Cyberpunk, Phantom Liberty. Surprise, surprise, Nvidia using Cyberpunk as their testing grounds for AI projects. It's going to be in Portal with RTX and Alan Wake 2 and deep learning anti-aliasing. So ray reconstruction is going to be available on all GeForce RTX GPUs. So everything back to 20 series is going to have ray reconstruction. So I'll be able to test this. We'll see how it is in person. But AMD is also having a Gamescom presentation, but theirs is on Friday. So Nvidia's was on Tuesday, I'm pretty sure. And basically at this point in time, almost confirmed, I don't know, they said that they're going to be launching something big at Gamescom. What we're assuming is it's the 7800 and 7700 XT. The reason that this leak came up is because ASRock apparently has a booth. From this picture, they literally show like on the 26th of August, RDNA 3 GPUs are going to be launched. Here are current specs on these cards. The 7800 XT doesn't exactly look all that good up against the competition here. It's very cut down from the 7900 XT. If we actually compare it to the past generation 6800 XT, so the card that this one is supposed to be replacing, this new card has 60 compute units and the old card has 72 compute units. And according to video cards here, it also has 3840 stream processors, which I think is equivalent to cores, and according to Tech Power Up as well, is significantly less cores than was on the one that it's supposed to be replacing. So who really knows how good this card is going to be? It really comes down to the price. I mean, it would have to come in for less money than a 6800 XT at the very least to be good, and 6800 XTs are going for about $510 right now. Just a small update for AMD cards in general. They just released a new driver that gave support for Immortals of Aveum, but it also seems like they finally fixed the high idle power that 7000 series GPUs have been having. As well, there might be a new RDNA 2 GPU coming out, which is kind of surprising. RX 6950 GRE, and it's very similar to how Ryzen, so the other side of AMD, recently released a 5600 X3D, and this is probably because of them having like leftover chips or something, like they're able to repurpose into a different package in order to sell. They're chatting with the boss of Yeston today. Yeston is an AIB card company. Basically what the rumor is that the owner of Yeston did get to at least hear about an RX 6750 GRE. Supposedly the 6750 GRE, we have no clue when this will come out or if it's even real, but it's supposed to be as fast as a 4060 Ti. It would probably have 12 gigabytes of VRAM, but it's supposed to cost the same as a 4060 non-Ti, so $300. It's cool to see a card, and if it launches at $300, that's gonna shift the market actually, because $320 or whatever that the 6700 XT is consistently going for, this card is actually one of the best deals that you can get on the market right now. We did see that this leak did come by someone who talked to the boss of Yeston, and this is where I have very sad news for you. This got me kind of down. My friend messaged me. Well, he went to Newegg and he looked up the, the Yeston cards that have the waifus on them, right? And as he was browsing through Newegg just to, see what the heck is going on, why are they called hot GPUs? There are no Nvidia Yeston graphics cards anymore. They used to exist. There used to be, my friend actually has a Yeston RTX 3080, and there's 3070s, there's RTX 4080s, all this stuff, but they don't exist, at least not in the US market anymore. So what are we gonna, like, what if you want Nvidia and you also want a waifu on your graphics card? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, waifu GPUs just like banned at this point in time? Like, come on, guys. No more waifu GPUs? Waifu GPUs were at least something different in the AIB market that made it kind of interesting. And if they're pulling out of working with Nvidia, I'm not sure if that shows a lot of longevity for the health of a company like Yeston, or they're just shifting to only be working with AMD at this point in time. Like, we don't really know. Hopefully they're doing well. But why buy a waifu GPU if you can't play any games with it? Okay, so this new game came out called Immortals of Aveum, and one of the scariest things about this is built in Unreal Engine 5 and has access to all of the features like Nanite, Lumen. It's really going balls to the wall. The minimum system requirements. So this is just to play at 1080p 60 FPS, and then you need at least an RTX 2080 Super, okay, or an RX 5700 XT, which is actually funny because that's what this waifu graphics card is here. But those are the minimum. And the recommended settings, yeah, 1440p 60 FPS, they're recommending an RTX 3080 Ti. VRAM is 12 gigabytes and an RX 6800 XT with a VRAM of 16 gigabytes. Daniel Owen did a early performance testing on it. I don't think VRAM is really an issue. This is 1080p ultra settings, and this is on a 4060. You can see that, so the RTX 4060, our brand new graphics card at 1080p, can't even get 60 FPS at 1080p ultra. Like, this isn't like asking a whole lot. It's kind of frustrating to make a game that a lot of people can't even play. And then the saving feature that's supposed to be 40 series cards is frame generation, and then they have frame generation in the game. Frame generation looks like this. And you look at the cursor and also the UI at the bottom left. Oh God, dude. But at 1080p low, it only barely gets 60 FPS. So a brand new graphics card can only get 1080p low settings. You actually have to use the DLSS quality at 1080p. It's not good to see. It's like another developer basically relying on upscaling, or maybe Nvidia relying too heavily on upscaling to get good performance. Like, I don't really know the balance of which it is, if it's on the dev or if it's on Nvidia right now, but the 6700 XT was able to get 60 FPS at 1080p ultra. Going from ultra settings on the 4060 all the way to low settings on the 4060 only gets you about 15 FPS or something. Or it is odd to me that the scaling is so small, although graphically low settings, in my opinion, don't look that bad in this game. Like, you still get a lot of effects and stuff. And that's one of the, I think, the main things probably with how this game was built in Unreal Engine 5, because you're using nanite and lumen, some of the most demanding parts of Unreal Engine 5, and you can't turn them off. The game has to have them there, or else it doesn't have lighting. What I think is kind of a dangerous slope with Unreal Engine 5, this comes from a studio called Ascendant Studios, and they're published by EA, okay? But Ascendant Studios, this is their first game, and they made their first game look like this. It looks gorgeous and everything. From what I've seen on reviews, like, there's a lot of flaws with the game. Like, it seems like it's okay, but it isn't like mind-blowingly good. But with Unreal Engine 5 being like an engine that basically any studio can use, and it has system demands like this, it's kind of ridiculous. Do you guys want me to test Immortals of Aveum? I haven't bought the game yet, but it is interesting to test because it does integrate all of the Unreal Engine 5 features into it. It seems like Starfield is not going to have XESS or DLSS, so as we just talked about how Nvidia is almost relying on DLSS, a lot of data that is out there because the game is getting like almost like distributed, and so people were able to data mine it a little bit, and they didn't see like evidence of other competitors upscaling technology in the game. Possibly go into the game and still add these features, but at this point in time, it's kind of unlikely. It's definitely not looking good for AMD for their case that they are, you know, not restricting competitors' technologies, because that's not good, okay? DLSS and XESS, in my experience, do generally look better than FSR, and we want to see, you know, access to the best upscale that every GPU brand has access to, and to see AMD possibly restricting that in Starfield is just like anti-competitive and bad for us. And speaking of new games, there actually came out a list of what the top performing games or top selling games that actually are out right now. That's just a quick one I want to throw in here. Remnant 2 is actually at the top of the games for July, and it beat out Diablo 4, Modern Warfare 2, Hogwarts Legacy. It beat out all these games for sales, but supposedly this was a pretty slow month in general. It's interesting to see like a smaller studio that like Gunfire Games that made Remnant 2. Yes, it has kind of performance problems. It's very CPU limited, and it kind of relies on upscalers for its minimum settings, but it is a fun game, and I've enjoyed my time with it. More on the tech side of things, Lenovo is launching a handheld console. So obviously we've seen things like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally. Lenovo just decided to step into the game, and they're going to be using the Ryzen Z1 APU, which is basically the same one the ROG Ally has in it, but it's not the extreme version of it. It's actually going to be like a Switch where you can detach the controllers like Joy-Cons from the side of it, and it's supposed to have a 8-inch screen. Don't really know when this is going to be coming out. You know, with these, it kind of all depends on the price, and we've seen, you know, some prices on the Steam Deck on the right and the ROG Ally on the left. So it needs to come in probably competitive with the ROG Ally to be even somewhat enticing. Your average consumer actually went over to PlayStation and got to have some handheld time with PlayStation's new handheld device. Okay, so, and this thing looks really weird. It's literally just like a screen, like a DualShock 5 controller, or that's what it's called, right? Just like cut in half and then glued to the sides of it. So it's a pretty odd looking device, but it seems like it'd actually be pretty comfortable to have the joysticks like kind of offset like this, like a normal controller, and having a little gap between the screen for your fingers to go into. You might be curious, like, okay, why isn't this like a big news thing? And it's because this isn't really like a whole new console. This is just a device that can do remote play to your PS5. It's actually only coming in at $200. Okay, and that's not all that bad, but it isn't really its own console, so, you know, kind of take it as you will. The use case inside the home is pretty limited. Like, somebody else would have to be using the TV, and then you would have a handheld device and you could play your PS5 in another room or something on your handheld device, or you just want to play it in bed. But it seems like Sony also kind of wants to get into this like handheld gaming hype again. But yeah, that's what's been going on for tech news probably in about the whole last week or so. Obviously, Gamescom is a huge event at this current moment. Nvidia and AMD have a conference there, and at Nvidia's event, they announced DLSS 3.5. As well, AMD is probably going to be launching the 7800. Well, we've seen the 7600, we've seen the 7900. It's going to be a 7700, 7800, you know, like we can do process of elimination, guys, like we kind of smart. Immortals of Aveum is very graphically demanding, and I don't know if you should really get it or not. I don't know. There isn't anything about this game that really like stands out to me, and I might be mistaken on that, but it doesn't get me excited. And the fact that the system requirements are so freaking demanding and shown by Daniel Owen's testing, yeah, there isn't a whole lot to get people excited for this game, and I just feel like this is probably one of the worst ways you could launch like a brand new IP and everything to get people excited about it. Why would you make a game that not many people can play, and it also being like a whole brand new thing that's just like a recipe for disaster and to not have very many players? Maybe a GPU like a 6750 GRE, which is rumored to being made at some point in time, which is interesting because it's on RDNA 2. Maybe a 720p this card could handle it. But this was leaked by somebody who talked to the owner of Yeston, and Yeston is the company that makes the funny, silly little goofy waifu GPUs, and they don't seem to be selling Nvidia graphics cards anymore, at least according to the US market here. Maybe they had to shift to just working with AMD, or this could mean that people aren't buying waifu GPUs. And like, come on guys, we gotta say yes to Yeston. Other than that though, AMD is sponsoring the new Bethesda game, Starfield, which is supposed to be big and coming out at the beginning of September. And it's pretty much confirmed at this point that it doesn't have XESS or DLSS. Possible it could still show up when the game is shipped, but it's pretty unlikely, but we can have our fingers crossed. Lenovo is actually coming into the handheld gaming market, or at least they're rumored to at this point in time, and there are some renders that were leaked. Or actually, no, these were officially unveiled renders, but we don't know the specs of this handheld at this point in time, and we don't know the price. That's really all that matters, as well as with handheld consoles, but this one is restricted to remote play. If you have a PS5, you can use this PS Portal. I think the use cases are very limited, but it also only comes in at like, what was it? $199, $200 basically. It seems pretty cool, and it's supposed to be coming out by the end of this year. But that's basically been it for tech news this week. Pretty cool stuff. Gamescom is probably the most exciting thing that's going on right now, and we're also seeing games that just like you can't run, and may we all just shed a tear for Yeston at this moment in time. Say yes to Yeston. All right, y'all have a good one. See you in the next video. Peace.